Okay, this is the Foley Belsaw 1055 sharp ball. I'm going to take the my phone off of the tripod, and I just wanted to kind of give you a basic overview of it. I'll talk about it in particular. Basically, you've got two grinding wheels here. Now, this big, massive setup here, this swing arm, is for sharpening circular saw blades. That's all it does. Okay, and it's very good at it, but the thing has to be set up very specifically, or you won't get a very good result, or not as good as if it was very well aligned. Now over here you have a very small wheel, and I'll show you that a little bit closer in a minute. This one is for sharpening knives. Also, this table here adjusts. You kind of need some WD-40. We're going to kind of restore this thing and get it in working order. Get back here to 0. And there's an adjustment in the back to where you can adjust the table height up. So let's talk about, first of all, how to set this thing up. And I'm gonna get to that right now. Before we start taking this thing apart, I'd like to show you some of the close-ups. This is the small grinding wheel that I was talking about. You can grind just about anything on this wheel. Now you do, in certain cases like long planer blades, you're gonna need to make a little jig. Now I'm gonna show you how to do that just out of wood. You're not gonna have any special metalworking capabilities or anything. Here is the dial, and that'll be important when we go to sharpen lawnmower blades. Here is the, oops. Here is the tech specs for this thing. The stand also has serial number and tech specs on it. Here is the larger wheel. Now this one here can be set up to sharpen drill bits. And with other attachments, it can be set up to sharpen other things. So, and there is your swing arm adjustment that is for the circular saw blades. Now around back here, and this is kind of important, as you can notice, here, this thing really sits at an angle, a real extreme angle. And the reason being is that when you're doing saw blades, you pull this thing forward to sharpen the individual blade tines, okay? So also another thing that's kind of, this is the stop adjustment on it right there, and that is frozen in place. We're gonna have to, it's got an Allen wrench on there, and we're gonna hit with some WD-40 too. Now around back here, we have a bolt, and this sets the base height of this machine. Now I am not sure, but I think that might be a little too short. So what we can do, whoops, we can go in here and maybe put a little piece of walnut wood spacer in there, bolt it down, and get a pretty good result for what we need. Okay, also over here, let's see, I have another big old grinder, and this is gonna have to have some work on it too. This grinder here is, let's see, that says Poly, product of Monrovia, California. Okay, I was given this by a guy named Alex. He was a mountain man, lived up in the mountains, walked to town every other day. And he was using this to sharpen axes. I traded him a Craftsman angle grinder for it. I think I got the better deal. But this thing here, this needs bearings. This needs a lot of work. But this wheel here is really good. It's going to have to be dressed because it's not even. He's chewed it up pretty bad, but that's a big, thick wheel. Anyway, let's get to breaking this thing down. The first thing we need to do here on the sharp awl is that we need to take it off its base, because as you can see, it's jiggling, and for what we're wanting to do, that's not good. So what we're going to do, there's two bolts here. We are going to loosen those, probably have to WD-40 them. We're going to loosen those things, and we're going to pop that off of there. All right, now this thing is circa 1960s, 70s, whatever, probably 70s. This is going to be SAE, Standard American English, measurement all the way, no metric. This bolt here, excuse me, this bolt here takes a 3/4 inch wrench, which I've got, so I'm going to go ahead and pull those off of there. Okay, I've got the bolts off. They're pretty easy to remove. I squirted the ends and in behind in between these engine mounts with some WD-40. After breaking the bolts loose, they came off pretty easily by hand. I'm going to set those over here on the table so I don't lose them, which would necessitate having to go to the hardware store and get new ones for these nuts. Okay, now the weight of this thing, let's see, how easily we're going to be able to get this thing out of here is debatable. Hang on a second, I'm going to get a little punch. Okay, I've got Mr. Punch and Mr. Ball Peen Hammer, so we're going to see if we can get this thing out of here. Well, maybe just the hammer itself. Doesn't appear to be moving, but hold on here. See if I can. Wow, that's really frozen in there. Huh. Hang on just a second. I'm going to have to see if I can get this thing loose. I won't bore you with the details. Okay. Finally, was trying to do it the hard way. Basically, underneath there, you've got these two kind of stubby, they're not very big or long, hex bolts. They're, let's see if I can read, I'm not quite sure. It's a pretty good size SAE hex wrench. But anyway, you pop those out and this thing comes right off. So we're gonna move this, take it over to the bench and see about getting that base off. Okay, here we are again. Now, here's something interesting. See, there's a guy that has some videos on this kind of stuff online. His name is Old Sneelock, I think, and he's super awesome. You should watch his videos. He's got a lot of really good, lots of years of experience. But he was working with an older generation model of grinder. I think it was a 10245 or something. I could be wrong on those numbers and probably am, but his had two separate pieces, I believe, that were on the base, and he was saying how it was kind of difficult to, with one screw in to align them up. Well, apparently this is a improvement because this is just one piece. And also, the reason I couldn't punch these things out were because these things are specialized, and they just go right into a slot here. You can see the tip. So it's going to be pretty easy to align this thing. I am going to clean these bolts, and I'm going to do that with WD-40 and a little wire brush, and we'll get back after that. We'll pop it back on there. Also, I want to pop this screw here out and see how long it is. I don't think it's very long, and I think we're probably going to have to fabricate some kind of a bench stop to elevate this thing to the place that I want it anyway. Okay, I pulled the bolt that was in there out there, and as you can see, it's a little bit longer than I thought it was, so it might work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back in there, and we're going to see. I can always, fabricate a stop for it. Also, this bottom plate here that attaches, the grinder to the base, and it's got holes in here to ensure proper ventilation of the grinder motor and everything. This is very expensive, so don't ever break this or lose it. You can buy it. It's for sale for, it's available on aftermarket parts. But I'm going to shoot a little WD-40, here and there in these things. And also, I'm going to go along. It looks like somebody has, yes. Hold on. Well, go along and also we're missing a bolt right there, but I think I might have taken that out to use the drill attachment with. So anyway, that's pretty much on there hard. We're not going to worry about that. I am going to go around and I am going to make sure all of these bolts here are tight. So we don't want any wiggle on this thing. Getting ready to put this thing back on. I just went, over this with a scraper to make sure it's going to be flat and that there's nothing on there. We're getting ready to put it back. Okay, even with this little hex nut out of this thing is really tight. And so what I'm doing is I'm just kind of taking a pair of channel locks, moving along there. I wouldn't use vice grips because I don't want that plastic thing to break. So once I get it off, I'm going to clean it with a wire brush. As you can see, it's really shiny. I sprayed the heck out of it with WD-40. So we're going to get that off, clean it up. And by that point, we should be able to put this whole thing back together. I might take a look over here at some of the bolts, like right here and here. Okay, as you can see here, I have cleaned this thing. I sprayed it with WD-40, wire brushed a little bit, but I just went ahead and threaded it all the way through there. As you can see now, look, it's really moving through there easily. And also, look at all that gunk that's coming out there. There was a lot of gum and stuff on that. We want our tools. This thing will lock into place with the reinstallation of this hex bolt right there. So, this is the last step. We're gonna reassemble this thing on the base over there. Some of my junky shop. Things are in transition. I've got enough wood to build a house over here, and anyway, old motors and stuff. But okay, we've got the base back on. Now, when old Sneelock did his, these things were moving, in any direction. They didn't have this nice welded thing right here on there. So he had to really make sure they were squared up. We're doing that too, but honestly, there's not a lot of play in this. So what I would recommend doing is taking your Allen wrench or hex wrench, however you want to call it, tightening those bolts down pretty snug, and then tapping it with a peen hammer or something, and make sure it's totally square, and then do a final tighten on it, and it should be fine. Okay, here's the mount all adjusted with the bolts put back in. We are just going to set it on there. It uses a 1/4 inch hex driver to drive those things in there. So we're going to drive them in real good and tight. Also, I did discover that the play in this table is coming from this, connection right here. So I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to blow it out because I want that table to move without me having to pound on it with my fist and things like that. So I want this thing working really good, and we're going to get it there. Okay, I've got the base attached. It's kind of almost a two-man job. You can't really see anything. And as you can see, it sits up and kind of floats. And this thing is really heavy. So you have to kind of work it in there. But I'm pretty satisfied with where it is right now. Everything's tight. And as you can see, it's working how it needs to be. Also, the grinder's setting up, at a workable level. It's not, it's got enough swing to come in here. Of course, we need to reinstall this stopper right there. But, for grinding and stuff like that, it's an okay angle. So now what I'm going to do is these bolts right here, I'm going to take off. And we're going to pop this, clean this all out right here, and get to it. Okay, we've got this thing yanked off, and this here attaches these little bedways here, these bedways. This is attached, on there. It just holds on like that. Really simple design. As you can see, there's some grinding sludge. We'll clean that off. But I want to lubricate these real well and get it to where there was some probably grinding dust and stuff in there, and you can see a little bit there, but we're going to clean all that up with WD-40 here and get it back together and put back on. This here attaches by the same system that the grinder attaches to the base. You've got these longer bolts. They're hex screws, driven, and I think it's 9/16. Anyway, so you got two of those, and they fit in there just like that. We're gonna clean all this up and put it back together and pop it back on. See how it looks. This thing here, sliding pretty good. IWD-40 did pretty good. Cleaned up a lot of the crap there, you know. And so anyway, we're gonna pop this thing back on, and then over there we should be able to start. Okay, well, we're past the adjustment part. As you can see, the table moves. There's you know, there's a little bit of play, but not a whole lot. Okay, so we really tighten things up. Now, the grinding wheel itself has to be, there's a common misconception that this thing has to be flat. You don't really want it flat. You want it very slightly beveled and curved, and I'll explain why here in a little bit. But you can do that with one of these squares. It's actually a lot easier, I guess, if you can't really, you can kind of see through here. You can put the square in here and take a look, and the low part is over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a grinding wheel dresser to kind of, I guess you could say, square that up a little bit. Then we're going to put a little bit of a bevel on it. Okay, and let's see if I can move this. I think you can watch me do it. Okay, all right, so I'll be over cinematography. All right, so anyway, you can kind of watch what I'm doing here. Okay, all right, ooh, nice hum. Okay. Now, one thing about this, this is not the best kind of grinding wheel dresser. The best kind is a diamond one, but I've got one of those on order, but it's not here. Well, I'll show you how this works, okay? You just kind of put it on here, and you put it up against that, and it'll start spinning those wheels, and it starts taking it off. And if you look on here, you can kind of see a color difference. You may not be able to see it, but there is a color difference. You can see where it's taking it off. Okay, and here we go. You just kind of want to get straight across there. Kind of difficult because, okay, I'm going to stop it, let this thing slow down. And then I'm going to check it again. Waste video. Okay. We're going to pop this, and I'll move the camera around here where you can see a little better. Okay. And I'm going to go in here, and I'm just going to kind of take a look. Yeah. All right. It needs a little bit more, okay? So we're going to do that, and we're going to keep doing it until it's flat. I won't bore you anymore with that. Once we get flat, we'll get a lawnmower blade on there and look at sharpening it. Okay, I've dressed this, and it's about ready to go. It's got a little bit of a bevel on it, and probably not 100% perfect, but with a diamond dresser, this thing here, these are cheapies. You buy them at Harbor Freight Tools. That's where I got this one. These will wear out very quickly. Diamond dressers will not. When I get a diamond dresser, I'll make a video on that. But these things, it's already pretty much ready to go. You know, we've, like I said, for grinding, I make sure that this is down as far as I'll go, so, you know, there's no rock at all in it. Now, if you're wanting to do a saw blade on, of course, you'd have to adjust that for the right amount of rock to pull that thing into the blade tines, okay, and the cutters. So, basically, our sharp awl, Foley Belsaw 1055 sharp awl is ready to go. I'm going to show you how to sharpen a lawnmower blade on this, and it's going to be really fun because lawnmower blades are one of the things that most people want to sharpen on these things. And it's really easy, so I'll get to that right now. Okay, what we're looking at here is a typical lawnmower blade. Now, I've just started kind of dusting this on the saw, or excuse me, on the grinder. And lawnmower blades, interestingly, they don't have to be super razor sharp. And see, this blade here is kind of difficult. Ideally, you'd probably be best putting it against a grinder like this, but then you run into, you know, what happens here. Whoops. Well, what happens here when you get into this area, you know, where you've got kind of a bevel. And this is where this works really good. Now, the way we're going to do this is we're going to put the blade in here like this. And we're just going to kind of freehand it, you know, get down to here and come over here and start going along in there and following the general contour and angle of this. I'll set the phone up so you can see it. It doesn't really work good like this because of you know, obvious things. I mean, you could put it on there, but you wouldn't get a good bevel on it. So the good thing about this particular setup is you can sharpen it so many different angles and get so many different results. So I'll set that up now and let you watch me sharpen. Okay, the light on my phone or on my tripod here kind of went out, but you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to start this thing up. Now, I'm just kind of start right here, and I'm going to nick that a little bit at just about the right angle. Not a lot of pressure. You don't want to put a lot of pressure. That's one of the mistakes people make, is they seem to put a lot of pressure on there. As you can see, you know, I'm starting to get these things take a lot of beating. And so it's going to take several passes. And then we're going to kind of clean it up. All right. There we go. And you can kind of look and say, okay, hey, I need to do a little bit more here. All right, yeah. And as you can see here, you know, we're starting to get there. We want to get this all nice and clean. This is okay up here, but still we got a lot to go because this is really dull. Okay, we still got a really blunt edge down here, so we're gonna have to. Yeah, it's still really dull, but you get the idea, and we're gonna do that on both sides. Now, a lawnmower blade has to be balanced and requires a cone and pinion, which I've got on order. But anyway, you get the idea about how you can sharpen lawnmower blades on this thing. And, you know, it's still kind of rough and it's uneven, but we're going to use a file. And once we get the edge on there, we're going to bevel that up real nicely. Or we're going to, you know, get a good edge on that. And that's how you use the 1055 Sharp-All to sharpen lawnmower blades. Okay, just like on a finishing note here, I do a rough cut with the Sharp-All, and as you can see, I've kind of cleaned this up with a file a little bit, and you can't really get this on a whetstone because of unless you had a conic whetstone. But anyway, I take the burr off with a file. Lawnmower blades cut even if they are dull. They will effectively cut grass. This one here has been sharpened up and cleaned up. As you can see, I haven't done anything except the grinding to this side. And you can see where there's some uneven grinding marks and stuff. But I cleaned that up with a file. And like I said, as a last test, you know, you want to put on a balancer, put a level on it and see if it's level. And you might have to take a little bit more off of one side and put back on the balancer. But generally, that's one operation of the Sharpall 1055. It's a really good little grinder. As you can see here, I've taken a little bit off of my grinding wheel there, sharpening that blade. But this surface here, you know, is still good for, you know, sharpening knives and other things. And I'm going to get into some jigs to make to sharpen chisels and planer knives and things on this. So the interesting thing is when you're sharpening with this isn't the last step. You know, if you want a really super sharp blade, you're going to have to use some finer grit abrasives and do it by hand. But that's basically the operation of this thing in a nutshell. It's a wonderful little piece of equipment. I'm going to get into many other pieces of equipment that I have here in the shop. I have a Shopsmith Mark V over there, a jointer, little Magna table saw, a 106-year-old bandsaw, and there's some other stuff. My shop's kind of junky right now. I've got tools laying all over the place. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to really get the most out of this stuff. But I'm going to do a lot on sharpening because I'm going to show you how to use the drill bit sharpener with this and other things, because you can pick these things up fairly reasonably. Anywhere from $150 to $400. I've seen these things, depending on really what you want to spend and how good a shape it's in. But this one here works wonderfully, even though it's got some paint chips on it. It's a good grinder, and we'll be doing a lot of different operations on it, sharpening scissors and things like that. So anyway, that's where we're going. Hit like and subscribe if you like my video. Leave some comments or questions or anything, and I'll try to get back with you and answer them, your questions. Bye-bye.